At this time, I would like to introduce our next speaker, but she is going to speak to us via the magic of video. Sari Ohsada will share with us her recent master's thesis research while she was at Oxford University on the premise of just transition and how that affects thermal coal in Alberta. You will see on her video that she'll fill you in on her background, but her involvement with Rotary goes way back 10 years ago to when she was an exchange student, and most recently when she was the recipient of the District 5360 Global Grant Scholarship, where she attended Oxford University. Okay, sorry. I want to read to you why Sari could not be here. And this was sent to us today. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for including me virtually in today's conference. I hope it is going well. I walked across the stage in Oxford this afternoon, and I'm happy to announce that I have officially received my Master's of Science degree in Environmental Change and Management. Thank you so much for all your support and making my special year abroad possible. I look forward to seeing you again soon, and I wish you all the very best for the conference. Kind regards, Sari. Cue the video.
Ten years ago, I was a 16-year-old student in Canmore, Alberta. Growing up, I loved nature, the mountains, and doing many outdoor activities. At the same time, I was raised in a Japanese immigrant family, practicing Japanese culture and language. My parents taught me the importance of cultural diversity, working hard for my potential, being open-minded, and being kind to others. So in high school, I spent a lot of time hanging out with international students who had many interesting stories of their home countries, their families, and customs. I wanted to be like them, but didn't know how. Until one of my close friends from Switzerland one day told me, "Ask Rotary, they will help." This is when I first heard about Rotary International. Rotary offers a one-year opportunity called the Rotary Youth Exchange Program, designed so that young people can learn a new language, discover another culture, and become global citizens. I thought this program was perfect for me. And very fortunately, I got selected by my home Rotary Club of Canmore to live in France for 1 year. I lived in a rural town called Louan in the region of Burgundy with 3 host families while attending a local French high school. Louan's is known for their wineries, Bluefoot chicken, and ancient arches. It was an experience like no other for a teenager. And most notably, all my 3 host families were very different. My first host family owned a local cinema, and I had 2 young host siblings. My second host family lived in the Gendarmerie, a national police force in France, as my host father was a policeman. And finally, my third host family, unlike the previous 2, lived outside of the town on an organic farm with a horse, a pony, goat, dog, many chicken, and 2 cows. All 3 families taught me French language and culture through each of their unique lifestyles, values, and worldviews. They also taught me that culture is not necessarily shaped by logic or science, but but rather by habits, social groups, and a sense of belonging. One of the most memorable interactions was with the eldest sister in my third host family. The family was very health conscious and made an effort to grow all their fruits and vegetables on their farm while sourcing organic meats and dairy from local markets. They were very strict about using their motor vehicles and made every effort to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. However, what puzzled me was that the eldest sister smoked cigarettes. Even the parents knew and seemed okay with it, so one day I just gave up on holding back my curiosity and asked her, "Why do you smoke even though you know it's bad for you?" And she said very simply, "It's part of our culture." And that's when I realized that sometimes the actions we take in our day-to-day lives are the way they are because it's deeply embedded within our habits, our social groups, and our sense of belonging. Therefore, from this interaction, like many others during my Rotary Youth Exchange, I learned that there are diverse ways of practicing our cultures, even within one country or village, and that we are often shaped by our physical, socioeconomic, and political environments. After returning to Canada and finishing high school, I decided to study environmental science and global development studies at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. I kept in touch with Rotary by volunteering for Queen's Rotaract Club, a professional and community service organization for people ages 18 years or older. It was another experience for me to interact with passionate Rotarians in another province. For one summer, I embarked on an internship with the United Nations Development Program in Kosovo, located in Eastern Europe. Here, I learned about the challenges and opportunities of rebuilding an entire nation from post-conflict environment. In Kosovo, a brutal mass ethnic cleansing campaign was imposed by Belgrade in 1998 to 1999, affecting thousands of Albanian Kosovars, as well as minorities including Serbs, Bosniaks, and Turks. In response, approximately 400 non-governmental organizations arrived to assist war victims for short-term needs, such as emergency sheltering, and long-term needs, such as peace building, transitional justice, and reconciliation, which actively continues today. While I learned about the realities of cultural, political, and environmental conflicts from international experiences such as these, I became more aware of these similar yet different challenges prevalent in our very own home province of Alberta. Instead of staying home, however, I wanted to explore this issue from diverse perspectives, which compelled me to study abroad at one of the world's leading institutions, Oxford University. Through hard work, I was very fortunate to be accepted to the master's program in environmental change and management to explore these questions related to my home province. However, the tuition was exorbitantly expensive, and I knew I couldn't afford to go. However, I had one chance and applied to the Rotary Global Grant Scholarship by my home Rotary District 5360, a highly competitive but extraordinary opportunity that supports graduate study at any university outside of Canada. And I got it. I was selected as one of 2 students to be able to study abroad that year. Since I was intrigued by Rotary Foundation's areas of focus on peace and conflict resolution and supporting the environment, I decided to focus on one natural resource: coal. Or more specifically, thermal coal, a type of coal used for power. Thermal coal is one of the most polluting fossil fuels currently used as a source of electricity worldwide. While less polluting alternatives such as renewables and natural gas exist, coal dependence remains high, partly due to its affordability, accessibility, and historic legacy. Such was the case in Alberta, Canada, where the entire electricity industry, much of it relying on coal, accounted for 17% of the province's greenhouse gas emissions, but only 2% of the workforce and 1% of the province's gross domestic product. The situation made thermal coal an easier target for emissions reductions than the more profitable oil and gas sector at the time. Between 2012 and 2019, a series of political decisions were made to transition away from coal-fired electricity production in Alberta by 2030. At the forefront of these quick yet significant decisions were coal workers and frontline communities who were arguably the first and most drastically impacted from the phase-out. About 3,100 workers and their communities were deeply affected, having relied on coal income and property tax revenue for the past several decades. Though underreported, many of these communities have experienced devastation, fear, and uncertainty about their jobs and livelihoods. In response, the concept of just transition was introduced through federal government policy and programs to ask community members what a fair transition looks like for them. What is just transition? Researchers Newell and others state that just transition is the extent to which transitions to low-carbon economies are inclusive, recognizing the different burdens, costs, and the potentials for benefits among different social groups. While there is no single definition of just transition, the concept brings to light the importance of including justice to the transition to a low-carbon economy saying, often used by governments, companies, institutions, and researchers. As a signatory of the Paris Agreement, a legally binding international treaty on climate change, Canada launched a Just Transition Task Force in 2018 in an effort to assist Canadian workers and communities through the gradual closure of coal power generation. But the concept of just transition have much deeper historical origins. The original concept, defined by the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers International Union in the 1980s, was that workers who lose jobs to environmental protections should receive relocation assistance, full wage replacement until they retire or find comparable jobs, 4 years of free higher education, and stipends if no jobs are available after retraining. The intention of the concept was to counter the misleading jobs versus environment narrative to ensure that labor and environmental policies go hand in hand, and to ultimately give agency to workers and their communities. While this concept is increasingly used by governments, companies, and institutions, there is no single conceptual understanding of just transition. What's also surprising is that, though increasing, there is very little community-level research done around the just transition. Researchers Carley and Kaniski expressed that there is still a significant gap on exactly who is on the front lines, what is currently in place to assist individuals and communities through the transition, and whether everyone has the opportunity to serve as a stakeholder in decision-making processes. This then led me to ask, what is exactly a just or fair transition in the context of Albertan thermal coal workers and their communities? My research involved interviewing a sample of community transition workers and municipal representatives from the Battle River region, Town of Hanna, Leduc County, and Parkland County, as well as provincial and federal policymakers, union and labor groups, consultation groups, and the private sector and other interest group representatives. Although the people I spoke with are not representative of the overall impacts faced by these coal communities, they all willingly took the time to share their experiences, stories, and reflections on the phase out. Experiencing fear, unforeseen community tensions, and ongoing uncertainty, Albertan coal-affected communities have endured an unprecedented amount of social, economic, political, and environmental change within just a matter of few years. Those who remained on the front line advocating for a just transition were individuals with a deep sense of belonging and passion to support their communities. Transition workers and municipal representatives who experienced and witnessed the ripple effects and sheer sense of panic that spread across their communities, workplaces, and family households indicated that this transition was nowhere near just. While the political decisions surrounding the phase-out had a clear start and end dates, 2012 and 2030, community transition workers stated that the most intense period of the phase-out were the first several months, for some years, following provincial and federal decisions. It was both a challenging and complex topic to research, as provincial and federal governments had very different approaches to supporting the transition. As a worker has once said to me, rural residents choose to live in their communities for the social aspect, even when they know that coal has a high GHG emission and lowers air quality. Community members express challenges such as lack of early consultation, poor community representation, and failure to engage First Nations communities. They also expressed obstacles such as misrepresentation of rural environmental stewardship and mental health impacts, domestic violence, and substance abuse from employment loss. One community member said, "When you lose the jobs, you lose the families. When you lose the families, you lose the kids. When you lose the kids, we lose the school. When you lose the school, you lose a big draw of bringing in new families or new industry. It's a death spiral that has been seen in many communities over the last 50 years. The word transition means a period or phase in which a change or shift is happening, but it is not always clear when and where it happens and how, which could put a lot of stress on communities. So given the few yet significant perspectives I've heard from this research, it shows that when we try to promote just transition, it is important to remember the human face of these issues. While there are incredibly exciting and optimistic advances made around new technologies, renewable energy, and the net zero economy, within Alberta and beyond, it is crucial that we work towards an inclusive future that acknowledges diverse perspectives, experiences, and cultures. We need to think about individuals like my host sister who still probably enjoys the smell of cigarettes. At the same time, we cannot forget our past and take for granted the experiences and achievements previous societies have made to ensure our current ones thrive. Now, I look back at my hometown of Canmore, where it was historically a mining community. I worked as a summer student at the Canmore Museum and Geoscience Center before I was a Rotary Youth Exchange student. And I remember working alongside the local legend Jerry Stevenson. He was a former chief engineer and assistant general manager for the coal mines in Canmore from 1968 to 1974. Before he passed away in 2019, I remember him as being one of the kindest, most humble, and most dedicated community members who loved and felt at home here in Canmore. He was both a proud coal miner and a respected environmental steward. After returning from Oxford University, I learned that there's so much wealth of knowledge to learn from those who are still here with us. And they could be right here in your very own communities. Thank you for inviting me to the Rotary District Conference. I'm very grateful to be here virtually and hope we meet in person soon.
Are you sensing a theme with the youth? Like, really? They got it going on. And we've come out of 2 years of pandemic. We got world unrest everywhere. We're divisive. It's just, I tell you, you get up in the morning, you go, what is it all about? Well, if you're not inspired after today, this is what it's all about, the next generation. The shelter box donation on behalf of Sari was sponsored by Steve Cook of Raymond James right here in Cochrane.